Keir Starmer faces a growing rebellion to his welfare reforms. Almost 130 MPs now, including 120 backbench Labour MPs, have now basically backed amendment which would completely scupper his welfare reforms in total. I want to know, do you support his reforms or do you support the rebel MPs? Tell us what you think. 0344 499 1000. Well, let's talk to Michael Simmons about this. He's economics editor at The Spectator and joins us. Good morning to you, Michael.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. Look, let's just talk about, just first of all, what does this welfare reform actually look like? What does he want to do?
So it's actually a pretty modest reform, and the idea is behind it is to get less people onto the sickness portion of universal credit and also make it harder to get the PIP payment, the personal independent payments that are meant to make it easier to live.
So will they cut anybody who's currently on it? Will people be reassessed or?
No, so there's this sort of safety net period, if you're already on the payments, but then when people do come up for reassessment, which is part of the process anyway, then they could be scored differently. But again,
yeah,
there's a kind of transition money to stop that effect. The main portion of the cut really is about stopping younger people and also new claimants from getting these benefits.
And the idea was that 800,000 fewer people would end up on these benefits, by the end of this period. But we're told this is going to save £5 billion a year by 2030. But that doesn't mean the welfare bill is going to go down. Not only are we going to be spending obviously more on pensions, we've got an older population, but we're also going to see an extra £13 billion in total spent on the welfare bill. So it's going to go up. Just their plan is with the welfare reform, apparently massive reform, is going to go up by slightly less. So, I mean, it's not a game changer, is it? Certainly this bill, but they're playing that this is a absolutely vital key part of their plan. So many MPs have now signed up to an amendment. It's basically a wrecking amendment, isn't it? This amendment it's a reasoned amendment that basically they'll have a vote on this. If it gets selected, that this bill falls next Tuesday. But we're including these aren't just sort of, a few difficult usual suspects, are they? They include, committee chairs, people who you'd normally think would be pretty on board with what Keir Starmer wants to do, like Meg Hillier.
Yeah, exactly. So I think no Labour MP, goes into Parliament to cut benefits. And as you say, this cut is really small. Before they proposed these reforms, the sickness portion of the benefits bill was forecast to rise to 100 billion. After the cut, it's still, forecast to rise to about 100 billion. So this five billion cut, which a big chunk of it is getting to work support, is not actually, going to make a big difference here.
These are just huge sums of money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the calculation of there are many Labour MPs who there are some that are just totally deluded and think we can just keep spending and spending, but there are many who recognise that we have to rein in the welfare state because it's simply unaffordable. But I think some of them have made the calculation that given this cut is going to make absolutely no difference to Britain's long-term finances, then why do something that annoys my constituents? I may as well just block it.
And makes me look cruel. And again, they're still dealing with the fallout, of course, of the winter fuel cut. Again, there was a U-turn on that, but of course that U-turn has kind of fueled these kind of backbench rebellions, hasn't it? Because MPs go, well, I know I can force the government to it wasn't the Tories that forced this, but it was backbench, it was Labour voters going, we are unhappy with this, and telling Labour MPs. But this is the thing. You say, no Labour MP gets elected want to do welfare cuts. I mean, they should. They're supposed to be the Labour Party, not the Welfare Party. And they should understand that it's not actually good for a young person who's left school with very few qualifications probably to sit on their backside for the rest of their life and be written off. I mean, if they actually want to take a moral stance, they should make that case. But we know that, the BBC will immediately have someone on who's in a wheelchair saying, but I can't work, isn't it terrible? They won't actually look at all the people who are perfectly sodding capable of going to work with a little bit of a nudge and a prod, and frankly, in my view, better parenting in the first place. Part of your job as a parent is to create someone with a work ethic who'll contribute, and not say, I feel anxious today, I don't go to work or school or whatever. But they should take a more moral stance. But they want to be nice, don't they? They want to be nice. Meanwhile, our taxes are going to have to go up, but everyone's pretending they won't. But we can't afford this without more taxes.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's absolutely right. And I think this is the problem. And, people like myself are guilty of this, that we talk about this too much just in financial terms because that bill is so big. But really, when we're looking at doing these reforms, it shouldn't be motivated by, making sure you meet your fiscal rules or getting your headroom up. It should be motivated by what you just point out, that it's not just an economic tragedy, it's a human tragedy. If you're a young person and you feel too anxious to work and the state accepts that and you're signed off sick, the chances of you ever having, a serious job and actually benefiting from a career are very slim. That's what we should be looking to tackle, regardless of the cost. But on the point of the cost, Paul Johnson of the IFS pointed this out yesterday. If we just keep spending and spending and spending, taxes are going to go up. Now, the view on the left of Labour, and I'm sorry to say the view in the general public, if you look at polling, is, don't worry, but the rich can pay
those
this.
people. It's always those people over there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's never themselves. And I think there's a brave position to be taken by Labour politicians who actually do believe in increasing the spending. That one of them should come out and say, look, I want to increase the size of the state because I want more benefits for everyone. And by the way we're going to pay that is increasing income tax on, low and middle income earners. But obviously that wasn't in the Labour manifesto. No one's going to say that. But unfortunately, that is where we are surely headed.
That is where. And look, another massive big. I mean, there's a massive big issue in terms of Keir Starmer's authority, which is just. I mean, it's gone. It is down the toilet already. I think he's 9 days away from the anniversary of his landslide election. I mean, he's got a working majority of 156 MPs. He can't get through the most basic welfare reform. His authority is long gone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is the flaw of Keir Starmer not having, an ideological standpoint for everything he does, and his only ideology being professionalism. I think if he had presented, the human case that we make for why these benefits are a bad thing, then it would be easier to say to his MPs, look, this is, our driving force, this is our motivation for this government, therefore you've got to back it. But when the only motivation seems to be, make some numbers add up in an OBR spreadsheet, it gives a lot of license to Labour MPs to say, sorry, this is not what I...
Absolutely. And again, another big thing that we're spending an awful lot of money on, which people are unhappy about, is, of course, channel migrants, illegal migrants arriving in this country. The Sun has gone 2-3 days now on this story about channel migrants who basically arrive, and within hours in some cases arrive, and they're put in their asylum hotel, and there they are, and they get a job, basically working for Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eats, whatever. They've got a bike, it's got got the big logo on, they're parking at the asylum hotel. Everyone's pretending it's not happening, and it is on a grand scale. But of course they're not allowed to work. It's illegal for them to work. They have no right to be here, let alone work here. And therefore they're not paying tax on that salary. But what's happening is these big companies, and everyone knows they're doing it, and they're all just turning a blind eye until it's on the front page of the Sun. They basically give someone a contract, and they can subcontract like 40 people. They can pay for 40 people's different shifts to one bank account. This is a complete and utter scam. These people are earning, we're told, hundreds of pounds a week, some saying up to £1,000. I mean, they must be doing some serious shift work. But this is, this is illegal working. There's now, we're told, going to be a clampdown on this. But the crackdown, interestingly, is going to be, we're going to arrest those people. Well, they're already here illegally. And we can't deport them. We know that. We never do. And we're going to confiscate their bikes. They probably stole their bikes in the first place. Where did they get the money from to buy the bike? They were destitute, weren't they not, when they came here? I mean, this is how unserious this government is now.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a really interesting one. I must confess, I'm a regular purchaser of Uber Eats and Deliveroo, and you notice it yourself that it tells you the name and the photo of the person who's going to be delivering your takeaway, and very often that is not the person that turns up, and it's because they buy these accounts. And I think the problem needs to be stopped at source, right? I think in a way, even though this work is illegal, I would rather that the people who are in these asylum hotels were doing something like semi-productive than something like more criminal.
I'd rather they just weren't here.
Well, exactly.
If they're allowed to work here, that'll be yet another pull factor.
Yeah, I just think, given the ones that are here, they could be doing worse things. But I think you're completely right that they shouldn't be here in the first place. That's the problem that needs to be solved. All these things are kind of downstream of that. So they can say they're going to, crack down on them, arrest them. But as you say, they're already in these hotels. They're already not meant to be here.
Exactly. Michael Simmons, economics editor of The Spectator, thank you very much. You did. Claire Pearsall, come in on any on that.
I think that Michael raises a really valid point, is that the government are looking to do this purely for a fiscal benefit when you're looking at welfare reform, rather than looking at why
most
it's
people
better.
don't know what fiscal means, for God's sake. I mean, exactly, it doesn't even mean, it's not what, it doesn't mean anything to most people.
No, it doesn't. Most people just want those to be out at work when they can, and that's what we should be looking at. The benefits of being in work, getting up on time, striving for something.
Absolutely, and raising your kids to do the same thing, by the way. It's part of your job. If you don't want to do that, don't have kids. I want everyone to have, we need to have more kids, but seriously, we need to start talking about this as a massive issue. If your kid is not going to work, sorry, that's down to you. I'm sorry.